Cycles end and begin in the quiet, not the noise of the calendar flip. We chase a new year like it's a clean slate handed to us by time. But the true shift that results in lasting change is inner, closing one breath to open the next. The solstice, it whispers it. The moon cycles, they echo it as well. Nothing's ever truly over. It just transforms. Take stock of where you've been. Feel the lessons deep in your bones. And step forward without force. The path is always there. Your choice lights it. Every day's a new beginning. Every breath is a fresh start. Every new you isn't waiting for January 1st or any other arbitrary point down the road. It's right here, right now.
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you. You won't get to choose how long you're here. You won't know how many sunrises you have left. You don't get to rewind, pause, or skip the hard chapters. All you get is now. This moment, this breath, and most people waste it. Waiting for the perfect timing, for clarity, for permission.
For those of us living a life where our purpose doesn't need permission, capturing fulfillment and meaning in every moment we're alive. This is the Live This Life podcast. I'm your host, Heath Cummings. I'm here to inspire you to ask yourself the question every day. Are you living? Or are you killing time? What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Heath Cummings. We're a couple weeks into the calendar year of 2026, but honestly, this episode isn't about January 1st. It's about every single day being a potential new beginning for each and every one of us. It's been something I've been thinking about for a while, and I've been thinking about how we get trapped into the idea of the perfect time, and it's something I've actually talked about in recent times, in recent episodes, and it keeps on popping up for me for some reason. It's a popular subject as well. It's kind of in the forefront at this time of the year because I'm recording this in the beginning of the year. And it's when we make those resolutions and these promises, and we promise ourselves a fresh start. And then by February, the old habits are kicking in, they resurface, and the weight of life is back heavier than ever. I've done it. I've been there. I've scribbled lists. I've burned letters. I've told myself this year I'm going to get it right, just to end up at a place that I didn't desire when I made those promises. But the truth really hit me a few years ago that resolutions really are just surface fixes for deeper issues that many of us aren't really aware of. We're completely oblivious to those things for one reason or another. If you're resolving to get in shape or be more present, whatever it is, it usually means that you're not living that goal every single day, that you're not embodying the type of person who would have those things in the first place, someone who magnetizes those experiences to themselves by the essence of who they are at their core. You're living life from outside of that actual mindset and that heartbeat of what it takes to be that kind of person in the first place. It's about the mental status of the person. It's not about a resolution. And that ultimately translates down to the physical. The mental translates down to the actual physical of who you are. The resolutions that we make are just simply a symptom of the conditions that we create by our habits. The root of the matter, the root of the issue that we're actually trying to resolve, to solve, is the heartbeat of our habit, our programming that dictates the life that we live, the life that's required for us to get to the destination that you say that you have in your sights. Without that existing pretext, the prerequisite of that life that you say you want isn't going to show up. The inevitable self-doubt that lies beneath all that programming is going to make you feel like you just can't do it. And then you give up. And then every year you get to that place where you're like, all right, I'm going to have a new start. It's that place that you need to get from. It's that self-doubt that you need to eliminate that need for a new start. at a certain time of the year. It's the new start that has to begin the moment you realize that you're not living the life that is congruent to the things that you say that you want. We don't have to wait for the calendar flip. We don't have to wait for anything else. We put that cycle on repeat because we don't fix those underlying things, and then we wonder why nothing changes. This episode is not about a January 1st do-over. It's not about resolutions. That's why I actually chose to release this episode about 3 weeks into the year, right after all the new year, new me people started fading from the gym. I was like, okay, I think we're about time to do this episode. It's about closing those cycles whenever you feel like it's necessary for those things to end. You let them end on a natural scale like all other cycles actually do. You have to consciously approach those things. You have to consciously approach who you want to be and the goals that you set weekly, daily, breath by breath. And you ignite those things with real intention. The calendar may say January 1st, and that's the place and time that everybody wants to do the reset. But that's just man-made noise. That's a 12-month grid slapped over nature's perfect 13 moon rhythms, which in all reality is a tweak made by man as well for empires and taxes. That's pretty much it. The new year itself breathes with the winter solstice. It is a natural process when light returns from the longest night, or in some disciplines, it's in the spring equinox, when day and night balance out. Either way, it is not on mankind's schedule. It is not on our perversion of the perfect natural calendar that's out there right in front of us. It's that undeniable symbol that nature has a schedule that we can't delay or diverge from. It does what it does, no matter what our books say, no matter what somebody in a power of authority and in a position of whatever they think they say or do is the right thing. It's not on them. It's a natural process. And so is pretty much everything within the cycles of our lives. Nature runs on a 13 perfectly arranged 28-day cycles, putting tides and moods of everybody on this planet and our growth cycles in a sort of complicated spiritual cycle that we all experience in our human experience. The year that we observe in our modern world, the one that we all subscribe to, the one that we gather to celebrate, is really a farce. It's chopped for control. And in the process, we lost the sacred sync and the power that goes along with it to make these amazing strides in our lives. And I think once we recognize all those things, we can harness that sort of power and intention that comes with not just those annual cycles, but the small ones that also have power in them as well. I used to buy the hype, and it's only in the last few years that I haven't. So I'm not just some sort of person who's going to sit back and say shame on everybody who does that. It's only something that I've recognized myself in the last few years. I used to buy all that hype. I'd force a reset on January 1st only to burn out and lose my rhythm because I just wasn't sticking to those things, because it wasn't congruent to the underlying habits that dictated all of my actions. It was just words. That's all it was. And real change doesn't come from words. It comes from action. Several years ago, I stopped all that. And this year, several years out, I found it to be somewhat automatic. I started checking in on my life weekly, what served me, what drained me, daily, what lit me up today, what do I need to avoid tomorrow, and then even smaller, moment by moment. Am I breathing? What am I breathing for and about? And where am I presently? Am I here, or am I just killing time? And when the solstice came this past year, when light started to creep back in like it always does, I sat and recognized it like I have in the last few years. And in this particular instance, I felt a massive old cycle coming to a close when I took stock of everything. And on that day, there's no fireworks, there's no parties, there's no big ball drop or anything like that. It's just basically a quiet knowing and acceptance of a natural cycle coming to a close, and something else was unfolding, and knowing that whatever it was, I had no way of stopping it. But I just know that this was the start of something new. I could feel it. Just knowing that natural process is there and trying to go along with that flow and steering myself in the best possible direction that I can, it has its own sort of inherent power that lies behind it. And it's something that I think if you don't experience it for yourself, it's kind of hard to describe. But either way, that's where we're diving into all this today. and how to take stock of where you've been and honor those growth edges when you can feel those cycles being pushed to a close and ignite what's next in your life. We're going to pull from things like the Tao Te Ching, the Hermetic principles, a little bit of Stoic knowledge, I think, as well, and some of the simple truths that just cut through the noise of the very distracting and diluting everyday life that we live. This isn't about a fresh start on a false date. It's the opposite of that. It's about living the new you every single day, no matter what month it is. So no matter what time you're listening to this, stay tuned. This could be July, it could be August, it could be whenever. This isn't just about new year, new you. This is about a new way of thinking. So stay with me on this one. We're ready to burn down the old and build the new. But before we get too deep, let's pause for you, the listeners, the heartbeat of this entire thing. Your words really keep the fire going. And before we sink in too deep, we're going to dive into a couple of the words that some of the listeners may have left. If you're one of those people that would like to leave some of the ratings and reviews for us to read on the podcast or not, if you just want to write in and share a message with all the listeners out there and myself, or if you just want to keep it private and you just want to say, hey, thanks for what you do and here's how it made a difference in my life, you can write into connect@livethislife.org. That is the email address. And if you leave anything on the social media, direct messages, I'll get the DMs wherever you see them, and whether or not you want to keep it private or not, you can just list that right in there. But today's comment that I'm going to read comes from a spot on YouTube where one of our listeners named Rama McCoy. She left this one on the last episode where we read from the book Oneness. It was chapter 146 where we read episode 146, chapters 11 and 12 of the book Oneness is what we read on that episode. And she writes, yes, I listened to chapters 1 through 10 on my way to Sedona a few months ago. So glad you're picking this back up. And yeah, me too, Rama. Like this is such an awesome prospect for me to be able to read this book on the show in the first place. I've read that book for years, and I'm so glad that so many people have listened to those episodes and gotten something from them, because that book is amazing. And so many of us are busy in our everyday lives, and yeah, there's things like Audible and stuff out there that you can listen to those books. But hey, if you like listening to me read that book as well, then more power to you. And also you get to listen to it for free on the podcast. All the previous episodes that have Oneness are in the archive. You can go to livethislife.org and go to the podcast page, and you can find all 146, soon to be 147 and beyond episodes. They're all archived on there from the very first video episodes that we did. I think it was like around episode 111. And then everything that was audio before that, I've listened to some of those older episodes, and man, I got to say the growth edges are there. Like everybody's got to start somewhere. That's all I'll say about listening to myself and the episodes. I came back from like 2019, 2020. But if you want to go check out those episodes, the entire archive is there on the newly designed livethislife.org website. So go check that out. For everybody else who wants to leave the comments and ratings and reviews, one of the best places to do that is on Apple Podcasts. Spotify also has a great place that you can leave comments and ratings as well. But everything you do to leave comments and ratings all helps us reach new listeners. There's a sea of over 4.5 million podcasts out there now. And we have ranked as high as in like the top 50 something thousand spots. With the episode releases being so delayed in the last year, and then having some spaces just recently with all the stuff I've had going on in life, haven't been able to record as much as I would like to, but we're picking that recording schedule back up with the holidays now over. My son's back at college. I wanted to spend as much time as I could with him during those off season and spend some quality family time without grinding through stuff. But either way, all the episodes are picking back up. We're going to be diving into Oneness a lot more frequently, but wherever you get your content from, leave some comments, like and subscribe on whatever platform you're on. Hit notification bells, subscribe to the podcast so that you get new episode notifications whenever those things pop up. And if you're really into the show, if you head to livethislife.org, we have a mailing list. And if you want to join that mailing list, it's completely free. You'll be the first ones to know when new episodes come out, as well as get exclusive videos from me on those from time to time that nobody else gets. So if you're interested in that, go jump in, leave the ratings and reviews, join the mailing list, do whatever you can to help support the show. And also, if this show is stirring something inside of you, head to livethislife.org's merch shop that just launched. Live the inspiring messages that remind you of your greatness. Purpose doesn't need permission. Gear is live alongside of other ones like Get Lost to Find Yourself and Are You Living or Are You Killing Time? We have warm hoodies to get you through the chilly evenings, gym gear, as well as many of our products being 100% cotton and natural fibers. Not all of them, but most. So live the message you want to incorporate into your life and support one of your favorite shows along the way. The list is in the notes. All right, guys, now let's descend into the depths of this conversation where the real shift goes down. The Gregorian calendar that we all follow now, the January through December deception that we all follow is a complete farce. It's a Roman patchwork, like it's a 12-month grid that is slapped over nature's nearly perfect 13 moon truth. Pope Gregory fixed sort of a drift in the calendar. I guess that was the purpose behind it. That naturally happens. But when he did, he ignored a bunch of natural cycles and rhythms. He ignored the lunar natural rhythm, and the solstice is a perfectly scheduled turn that happens. January 1st is really just an arbitrary date. The real cycle lives and breathes with where the sun positions itself on our horizon at certain points of the year. At least that's my belief. In the winter solstice, when the light returns after the longest night, or like I said before, in some disciplines, it's the spring equinox when day and night are balanced out with each other. And there's certain religious connotations that go behind each one of those. The story with, Jesus, the birth of the sun, comes around, December 21st. It's, mixed into the story of Christmas. Easter tends to happen around the time when the spring equinox happens. It's a few weeks later, but either way, they all have their connotations within sort of the modern observance of the new year and other religious aspects and points of our society that we observe. And to be honest, back then we chopped it all down for control and taxes and for the sake of empire's power. And in that place and in that position, we lost the power that lies behind the sacred synchronization of those natural cycles. You can see it in humans when we disrupt natural rhythms and cycles, just when we disrupt our circadian rhythm of sleeping outside of nighttime hours. We don't observe the importance of the sun going down and what it does chemically to us to benefit our sleep. And we don't get the same restorative effects as those who have to work a night shift and sleep during the day. Their serotonin levels and everything else in their life is put out of balance. And they say that those people have shorter lifespans. And it's true. I could never, when I worked some really hard shifts, I could never get as good a night's sleep. I could sleep 8 hours and I still wouldn't be rested. It just throws your rhythm completely off. And being long past those periods, I see the total benefit of staying along those things. And it goes with other natural cycles, I think, in the world that we just tend to work out of our lives as well. There are micro and macro images, the mirrors of those small things, whether it's the small cycles of sleep or the large cycles of what happens in the natural world, the micro and the macro, as above, so below, just as in the Hermetic principles. I think they all have their inherent power toward our health and wellness. And ancient civilizations knew this. The Egyptians, they aligned the pyramids to the solstice's sunrise. And, the Celtics, they celebrated the Yule at the winter solstice. They honored the sun's rebirth. The Mayans, they tracked the 13 moon cycles with their calendars. I think it was the Incas that actually had massive festivals that went along with the solstice and the equinoxes. And even Stonehenge and Newgrange, they were purposely built to capture the perfect alignment of the solstices and the sun's position on the horizon. But we in the modern world, we sit here and we call those civilizations primitive, even though they built these things that we can hardly understand, never mind replicate with modern technology. And they did it with the awareness of staying in this perfect harmony with the natural calendar and didn't go against it for any reasons at all. And we lost that knowledge, we lost that wisdom, and we forced this 12-month grid over a very perfectly synchronized calendar that's there right in front of our faces in nature. And in my opinion, we lost a lot of what that actually can value us in our life. And we lost what the ancient civilizations knew and what they were able to accomplish and the wonders that we still can't describe and fully know their purposes of today. That knowledge and that mysticism that they possessed has been deified for thousands of years, and everything that they stood for has been called heresy and everything at the hands of modern religion and the dogmas that were behind it. And, the fears of just being called a heretic or that you observed the occult when you looked at some of these things was laid over those perfect natural processes. It was insane. It's crazy when you think about it now. And we demonized the celebration in an essence of a God-given creation and the observance of it, the perfect design that we happen to have on this planet of a calendar that's laid right out in front of us, and the potential power that lies behind observing those divine cycles. And when we observe those divine cycles, the sun's solstice, the moon's wax and wane, everything goes in a rhythm. And so many different belief systems fall behind that. The Hermetic principles are huge, all about rhythms. But our bodies, they also echo it. And if you believe in what the Hindus and Buddhists also believe in with the chakras, we have those 7-year cycles in our lives that are tied to certain energy centers throughout our body. They transform us layer by layer, and they say that we go through those certain growth cycles throughout different periods of our year. 0 through 7, with the root chakra, it's where our grounding and our survival from ages 0 to 7 is actually built. And we're building security in that place. We're relying on our parents, and we have to build that sort of root ground chakra and the energy center that lies behind it. From ages 7 to 14, we're awakening the sacral chakra and the creativity that goes along with that, and the emotion, and sort of that's where people's sexual being starts to come out in those later parts of that cycle. From ages 14 to 21 is the solar plexus, and how we're forging our will to be adults, and our identity and our personal power that lies behind that forging of that energy. Ages 21 through 28 is where the heart starts to open up to, we find love, compassion, connection to the world around us and people around us. Ages 28 through 35, that's the throat. It's where we're expressing our truth. We're finding our voice in our adulthood and our authenticity and who we really are and who we want to be. In my opinion, that's when we actually become adults, is in that time period, in that cycle of the ages 28 through 35. They say that we're an adult at 18 years old. We're far from it. I want to say I didn't really become an adult until I was actually in my 30s. I really become really mature and understood a lot of the ways of the world, and really felt like I could stand on my own 2 feet fully until about that time period. But yeah, ages 35 through 42 is where our third eye is starting to open up, and we start to sharpen our intuition and our inner vision of actually who we are, what we want to be. In ages 42 through 49 is when that top one, the crown, starts to really open up, and we start to really reach out there into the divine wisdom of the world. And we start to get this, I guess, our sense of wanting to be connected to divine source and a unity with it. We've gone through all these different things in our lives, and we guess we transcend some of the superficial things that can happen. And at a certain point, we're really looking for that divine connection in so many different ways. I think we're looking for that divine connection within ourselves, and we're looking for a divine connection with source at the same time. And some people go in the opposite direction during that time frame, and they buy themselves a fancy new Corvette, or men leave their marriage and they go after something young. They do things that is their midlife, the typical midlife crisis. Men and women do it as well. But I think that's the point where you diverge in that later portion, and you either springboard forward on that final energy center and you develop that for the rest of your life, or you double back over and over and over again in that last cycle until you finally get it, until you step up to that, or you just keep circling yourself back. But either way, every 7 years is a new awakening and a transformation. Just kind of like what we talked about before with the imaginal cells, dissolving the old self like the butterfly into the birth of the new person, who you are. And at the end of every one of those 7-year cycles, you really do birth into something new. And it's all a process. It's all a part of cycles that start and end. And I bet you, if you look at certain time periods in your life, if you can time certain major hurdles and difficulties, or even good things that you might have gone through, there's probably a time frame that looks something like a 7-year cycle. Sometimes it's 6 years, sometimes it's 8 or 9. But either way, you'll see yourself on sort of regular time periods where maybe adversity popped up and it's on a 7-year cycle, because I've totally seen it in my life. I've seen from 2003 up until 2010, and then 2010 to 2017, 2017 to 2024. It's almost like clockwork. So, I was kind of expecting the last one that started in 24, and I thought it was going to be completely different and for different reasons than it was. But it was exactly what I needed at the time I needed it. And it came in the form of adversity because I wasn't present enough in everything. In these cycles, as much as I talk about them and know them and everything, I wasn't present enough in them. But that's the thing, is that time's cyclic. It will not just keep going on in a linear fashion like we are made to believe in this modern world. it's a process that will fold back in on itself. It is not a straight line. It's a spiral like everything else is in nature, and it spirals back in on itself, and it evolves like everything else in nature. And we have just been conditioned to view time as this straight line that just keeps going forward, and that's it. And we have moved away from the observance of the power of the cyclical process. We're at a place in human understanding and in consciousness where we don't understand that concept of time and cycles. It seems kind of foreign. When you hear people talk about it really in depth, it's not something I can paint the picture of. I mean, you start to get into like 4D and 5D, four-dimensional and fifth-dimensional conversations. I'm just dipping my toes into a lot of that. But when you hear people talk about it, it's not something our brain can typically just grasp a hold of. It's a foreign subject because our brain's been conditioned to think and process in a whole different way. It's kind of like the change that maybe people went through in different parts of history, like when the Earth was flat for thousands of years to everybody to a round Earth model. It was completely foreign. And I mean, people would be deified if they said that they thought the Earth was flat. Everybody thought you sailed in one direction, you were going to fall off the side. And that's just the way that it was. And obviously we know that's false, although there's flat earthers out there that'll still argue that one, which I don't subscribe to, but I love hearing their conversations about it. But yeah, when you look at the other different major shifts in our belief systems, like the Copernican model of the Earth, where the Earth was the center of the universe and it got displaced and it was no longer the center. The sun was the center. And there's another point, something else became the center. It changed completely then. And, just like when Newtonian physics were challenged by Einstein's general relativity. And even now, Einstein's general relativity is being challenged by some of the discoveries in quantum physics. It just changes our understanding of the world that's around us in so many different ways. And that concept of time being cyclical and linear is another one of those. The ancient civilizations completely got it. The Mayan calendar just went in cycles. It went in time periods that folded back in on themselves, and we got away from that completely. But each layer of understanding tends to complement the rest. It doesn't mean that any of them were wrong, essentially. When we thought about the Earth being flat, I mean, in a sense it was wrong, but it led to the understanding of navigation just in north, south, east, and west. And then from there, the understanding of a round Earth changed the concept of navigating in certain ways. And when we adopted the Earth being displaced from the center of the universe, it made the universe get bigger and bigger. Even when we discovered that this cloud that we could see with some of the modern day telescopes in the sky, in the night sky, we had this little fuzzy spot out there, and they would call it the Andromeda Nebula. And then when telescopes got better and better, realized, well, that's not just some kind of a nebula, and the Milky Way galaxy isn't the entire universe. They thought that at one time, that the spiral of the universe, of the Milky Way galaxy, was the entire universe all at one. And then they discovered that little cloud up in the sky they called the Andromeda Nebula was actually another galaxy. And obviously as things progressed and all the way up to the modern invention of the James Webb Telescope and some of the deep space pictures it's taken, we have 100,000 galaxies in a slice of the sky it's able to take a picture of that is the size of a grain of rice. If you held it out at the end of your arm and held a grain of rice out, that's the chunk of sky that telescope took a picture of. And there's 100,000 galaxies in that tiny little piece of the sky. So you can just imagine the vastness of how much is actually out there and how much that model has changed from the flat Earth times to now. We need to change our thinking on the way that time is actually viewed as well. And it would have a massive impact on how we actually realize that our lives are completely governed by all these cycles. Like I said, ancient civilizations understood this a lot. I mean, even back in the Tao Te Ching that came from ancient China, it whispers bits and pieces of the understanding of the cyclictic returns. In the Tao, I will quote this one, where it says, the return is the movement of the Tao. Everything returns to the source. Cycles of yin and yang is one of the basic fundamentals of the Tao Te Ching. And there's no beginning and there's no end. It is one of the basic understandings. And it is so true to everything that happens in nature. It just flows. The Hermetic principles, they echo that throughout the entire discipline of all the Hermetic principles. The echoes of rhythm are pretty much in every single line of it. Everything flows in and out like a breath. The principle of correspondence, as within, so without. Your inner cycles mirror the outer. Everything is the micro to the macro when you look back on it all. Linear time really traps us in this false mindset of progress forward, and that's it. And that there's some end that is going to come that never actually does come. The universe, it spirals back in on itself, and life's lessons do the same exact thing. And opportunities return in new forms, opportunities, whether it's to learn a new lesson or just learn something new that you may not have learned great the first time. We adopt those cyclictic mindsets in our life, and we can figure out that life actually does have so much more power than we actually realize. That we find life is just like that wheel that turns through the seasons, and we can learn to transcend that linear thinking and that linear trap and gain more personal power in the process. We start to see that setbacks are less of a missed opportunity and more of what they actually are of their true nature. Is that sometimes we just have those periods where there's a retraction. It's winter's rest. It's sort of a dormant period that breaks through and ends with winter's end and the breakthrough of spring's bloom. We learn a very valuable lesson at certain times in our lives in some of those darkest points. And that we have to understand that is not some sort of place where we got lost, that no timing is wrong, that every single phase serves the whole, that every phase has its purpose. And the transition that can occur for us in those cycles, no matter whether it's a positive one or a negative one, is so divinely purposeful and divinely timed for every one of us. Each 7-year shift that happens, and every awakened layer that can reveal itself with you reveals more of your divine spark and what you might actually be purposed to do in this existence. And when you fall behind because you're not paying attention, like I have admittedly done several significant times in my life, when you're not listening and paying attention, life will catch you up. And when you've fallen into this trap of the modern life, whether it's the 12-month grid of the calendar or the superficial aspects of life that get imprinted on us by all of our societal programming that we've gotten from birth, those dark phases can rear their ugly head, and they will stop us dead in our tracks to get us back on track. They come in the form of doubt and loss, but we have to not see those as punishment. They really are just the soil for the rebirth of our life and to help us get back in alignment with the cycle that we are meant to be on. If we've gotten out of sync with the natural one, it's going to get us back on track, whether we like it or not. And we have to sometimes play catch up because we fall behind. And the mindsets that can come from feeling like we're off track or behind, or when we compare ourselves to other people, that discord can really get us even further out of our rhythm. So we have to be mindful that we're exactly where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there. And if not, we're likely being thrust forward in the form of an adversity or some other shakeup in life that is trying to just get us back on track. It's just that simple. I felt this many times in my own life cycles. The burnout that broke me up in 2024. And then the quiet that came afterwards that rebuilt me. Those cycles have their immense power and their start and ends. And like I said, I felt like I really hit the beginning of another cycle in this current time period when I stopped to actually listen and journal and decide where I was when I started to feel like, I feel like a cycle is actually coming to an end and things are starting to turn around and shift for me. So if that cycle's coming to an end and another one's beginning, what is the actual intentional place that I want to steer this cycle into? If this is one of those powerful moments where the adversity is over and a lesson's come to an end, what did I learn? What did I actually get out of that last process? And so I just looked back on this last 7 years when the cycle was coming to an end, when I sat there on that solstice and was really like, okay, what were all the powerful lessons that you learned in these last 7 years? What were some of the major life hurdles that you stepped over? What were the major wins that you had? Starting this podcast was a big one. It was like stepping out on that growth edge of not only shedding a whole lot of different traumas and everything else, but just doing something and finding something that was passionate, not because somebody else was patting me on the back to do it. If anything, I was discouraged from doing this in several different ways. I had some really inspirational people, but there's been a lot of hurdles along the way. What were the wins? What were the things that were not so great during that time period? And what did you learn from them? And as I took stock of those 7 years, it was like, okay, well, that was great. Now what's ahead for me in the next 7? Realizing that this may be one of those time periods where it's launching forward for me. What is next? Where you want to be and how are you going to get there? Setting that destination first is great, but now figuring out steps on how to get there is the next one. But the biggest part of all of that was just presence. That's the biggest thing. And I've made that mistake myself in life as well. Being so busy and filling it up with so many different things for one reason or another, whether it was ego gratification or whatever the vice was that I got trapped in, not being present got me away from the observance of the things that I should have been paying attention to all along that would teach me the lessons I was meant to learn in those particular cycles. Be present in what actually shapes you during those time periods. And I mean that in the most dire sense. Don't just listen to a podcast. Don't just do a few likes on social media or bookmark things and save it to your phone and download them or whatever for whatever reason you're not going to watch them ever. If anything, it's just going to take up phone space. But you get into that analysis paralysis when you start to wake up to a lot of stuff and you start saving things and you like this and you like that. And you're not really adopting those mindsets into your awareness. I mean, they're kind of there because you watched them or you heard someone say something, but are you really observing them? Are you really adopting those concepts and philosophies into your life? Because if you do, those will actually create good life patterns that will shift you. But are you really doing it? Are you making that shift? Are you doing those daily, weekly, monthly check-ins with yourself and being present to get yourself out of survival mode whenever you're there, to get yourself out of the rat race whenever you're there, and move your life forward through observance and presence as it's needed to? Do you take into account all the things that you need to do to become the person who isn't just wishing for the arrival of those resolutions results? And are you out there purposely taking action to transform into the person who has the life that you say you want, who has the life that you're dreaming of? And how are you forming the habits that are going to get you there? What's calling for you next? Keep your why burning. That's the number one thing. The fire that is there that ignites your journey and lights the way every single turn needs to be in the forefront of your awareness all the time. No resolutions need to really be there other than the pledge to be more present in your own life. Because when you're present, you'll set a goal. And if 1 day, 2 days you slip, you realize my goal is this and I'm not living the life I need to live to get to that goal. I'm course correcting right now. You don't have to wait until January 1st of next year to make a resolution to course correct. You do it today. As soon as you realize you're not on that course, you do it today and you start over as many times as you have to until that habit becomes part of your life. If you don't, the repetition and the repeating cycles are going to keep on going. Those things were built from a place that got you to where you are, if that's not where you want to be. And it took time to get there. It's going to take time to get you away from those habits as well. So be dedicated in creating those good habits that are going to get you the life that's going to serve you to your highest possible potential and not rob you of your life in the process. That's it, guys. That is the main message I wanted to put forward to you guys. I mean, it doesn't really take much more than that. It really is just as simple as being present. It takes a lot of steps, though. It does take some steps, but you don't have to wait for the calendar flip. That's not one of the steps. If you stay consistent on the resolutions that you make in your life and you form habits from them, it can literally shift your entire life in the next 365 days. Like I said, no matter what time of year you're listening to this episode, be conscious about where you're at and don't let those unconscious actions just trickle on through life. Be purposeful in everything that you do. Because if you don't, then it's just going to become autopilot. And that's sometimes where our life takes that divergent path. But again, it takes time. Be patient with yourself. Move through the cycle that you're in and just be conscious of it every step of the way. The new one could start tomorrow. It could start weeks from now. It could start months from now. It could start when those habits of the things that you say you want become your new way of life. It becomes the new cycle that you're on. It becomes the new time period that could be the best version of your life that you've ever had. That flow of life is yours to ride. That cycle is going to happen one way or another. So you capture the power of those cycles when they start and end, whenever you recognize it, because you're going to be more present in your life. And that's how you're going to recognize it. When those cycles start and end, and that flow starts towards some other resolution, towards some other time period, the next cycle of your life can just be that ultimate ride. And if you're present in it, you'll be able to guide yourself in that direction much more purposefully. So until then, stay aware, stay present, keep that fire alive. We'll see you next time. We are all creators. You got a story to share? Email us at connect@livethislife.org or book a time to chat about an episode collaboration at calendly.com/livethislife. That's calendly.com/livethislife. Subscribe on Spotify and YouTube to get full video episodes. Bonus content is also available through the mailing list at livethislife.org.